stop overplaying. You're not as good as you think.
Oh, too much. Those are the sorts of things you hear on the tennis club. We don't want to hear it no more. With the skill gap, you will always understand what you should have done. Professional tennis players all have different swings. You've got long swings, short swings, and everything in between.
Yes, and there are hundreds of YouTube videos telling you which one you should be trying to play. And we're here today to say none of them.
You have your own unique way of playing. This is based on your own body, your nervous system, how you can move and play your shots. So you can't copy somebody else. You have to be able to adapt and amend your swing based on the situation.
Yes, and it is that situation and the adaptation you're going to make that we are covering today, and what we call the skill gap. Essentially, when that ball is coming towards you, you need to make an assessment of the environment you're in and determine, well, how complicated is this situation? How comfortable am I? How much skill can I use?
So in simple terms, the skill gap definition is the distance between your backswing and the contact. So obviously, the further away it is, the bigger the skill gap. The smaller it is, the smaller the skill gap. For those of you that have watched our other coaching YouTube videos, we have a move, stop, play one about our movement skills, and we have one about zero, which is about when you stop when you're playing. The skill gap fits perfectly in with those as well. So if you haven't seen those, check those out after this video. Determining the amount of skill gap you use depends on both the environmental factor and your own level. It comes down to the situation and the environment you are in. If you are facing a really fast first serve, you're going to have a really small skill gap. You're going to get your racket behind the ball and you're probably just going to block it back. So you're going to have no skill gap at all. Equally, if you have a slow second serve coming in, you've got loads of time and you're set up, you're going to take a much bigger swing at the ball, increasing your skill gap, knowing that the timing will be achievable to be able to hit that attacking return.
Yes, so the environment determines how difficult or how easy the situation is. The second part of this is you yourself. So we need to talk about ego. Everybody has a bit of an ego, and the really, really important part here is that you park it and you put it away. We have to accept what skill we have. Some tennis players are better than others. When you watch pro tennis, you are watching the best who have ever done it. We've obviously been through a golden generation of players. We've had Federer, Nadal and Djokovic, amongst many others, raise tennis to a whole new level. And that is where all these YouTube videos have come from. Why don't you copy these guys?
Yeah, and of course, as we talk about the environment, depending on your own level, and actually just your level on each day, like you are inconsistent in how you turn up to play. Some days you'll be feeling great and having better timing than others. So those environments are going to be different. Obviously what I consider to be a fast first serve is going to be different to what you consider to be a fast first serve. And so the amount of skill gap we use are going to be based on our own level in conjunction with that environment to give us our overall skill gap. That is the concept. How much distance based on the environment and your level.
So when you are watching these videos and telling you should be playing this way or that way, we are not taking into consideration your level of skill. There are things that they can do, the pros, that you can't. So you need to find your level, you need to adapt to your particular skill ability, and that is going to determine the shot you can play. So like Josh said, the environment says you've got loads of time, your nervous system says, and you're not very good at tennis. So maybe you need to find a skill gap that's somewhere in the middle. Or maybe you're a brilliant tennis player and that difficult situation doesn't actually cause you much problem at all.
So when you first start playing tennis, or if you're on a particularly challenging day, maybe you've got a really great opponent, you're playing under windy, tricky conditions and you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to have a big skill gap.
No.
That's going to be the same if you're a beginner or you're advanced. It's going to depend, it's going to change all the time.
Yes, and when we say you have a small skill gap, what we are saying is you want to keep the racket and the ball closer together.
The skill gap starts from when you have got to zero. Those of you that have seen both our movement and our preparation video will know you stop when you get your racket to zero and then you begin your shot. And when you begin your shot, this is where the skill gap comes in. How big a skill gap are we going to have based on the scenario we find ourselves in?
Yes, if you feel particularly uncomfortable, you're going to keep the racket and the ball closer together, maybe a little push, maybe a shove, maybe a nudge, a really, really simple, basic, easy to perform skill, i.e. a very low level of skill to cover a very small gap.
Obviously, as we get more comfortable, and this could be because we get better, it could be that our opponent gets worse, it could be the conditions ease, we can start to bring our racket further away from the ball, further away from the contact, further away from zero, therefore allowing us more options of shots by increasing the skill gap, that distance before the contact.
Yes, and it is this point where you're going to have to start developing a range of options to cover the range of skills that you might need to perform. So like Josh said, ball comes over, you get to 0, you've now decided, oh, actually, this one feels quite easy. Well, what shot are you going to play? And that is the decision. That is the skill gap you're going to cover.
Now, obviously, as you get more advanced and you start adding more strings to your bow, more weapons in your game, more tools in your box, you have the need for a bigger skill gap to be able to play all these different shots. So you're going to bring your racket further away from the contact to allow you to do whips and cuts and chips and slaps and all sorts of other shots that you see all the pros playing all the time. And again, this is going to be as your level increases or as your environment becomes easier, or in reality, a conjunction of the two.
But speaking of pros, you will, I hope, clamoring at home saying, what about Mannarino? What about Fognini? What about
Ernest Gulbis?
They have wildly different swings, and this is exactly the point. What we are seeing when we see professional tennis players play is we are seeing their response to the situation they find themselves in. We have to remember that these are brilliant professional tennis players.
And we also have to remember that they've played for years and done hours and hours of practice, so they can have a big skill gap because their timing is so good. You guys aren't full-time tennis players playing all the time. You cannot have that level of timing consistently.
And even those pros sometimes shorten that swing right up and give it a little nudge. That is what I was talking about with Mannarino and Fognini, Kyrgios backhand. In fact, let's take Nick Kyrgios as an example, because you can see a wildly different approach based on what side of the body the ball goes to him.
Yeah, and that is highlighting his level of skill that he believes he has on both forehand and backhand, and the types of ball he's receiving in those different environments. You think about the greatest players of all time, your Federers, etc. They're so adaptable, and you'll see some of their shots have no skill gap and some have a massive one, and that is just them responding to the incoming ball and the situation they find themselves in.
So the key thing to consider, whatever your level, is what is going to be my best solution to this particular problem. And it is that dynamic and it is that changeable. You can't go in with a plan before a match starts. You can't decide now. You can't watch a video and say, well, I'm going to play like this. It all depends on that moment when you've finished moving and you've stopped, how comfortable you feel, the situation you find yourself in, and how much skill you feel like you can put in and maintain a consistent, successful shot.
When we talked about move, stop, play and zero in our previous videos, we talked about using them as mantras or as focuses to help you improve your game and focus on something else that isn't kind of the score and the nerves and the stress of the match. Skill gap is, I think, more of a reflective tool. It's something that you can use if you make a mistake. You can go, I made that mistake. Did I just go for too much? Was I not set up properly and I've increased my skill gap and I should have played shorter? Maybe in the warm-up, you're going to have a smaller skill gap in the first few games to keep nice and tight and not make too many mistakes. And as you get more comfortable, you can enlarge it, and being aware of it, but after you've played and at change of ends will just help you reflect on your game and therefore improve your performance.
Yes, so if you are a player who struggles with consistency, maybe overplays a little bit too much, consider the skill gap when you are next on court. Make sure you get a few more balls in the court by tightening it up and being a little bit safer. More consistent, more points, more wins, more celebrations, more prizes, more...
If you enjoyed this coaching tip and you haven't seen our array of other coaching information, please find it and check it out. I would really appreciate the support. If you think you have other people in your tennis playing community that would enjoy these tips, please share this video to them. Please comment below and let us know what you would like help on for our next video. Thanks very much for watching. We will see you soon.
No, they'll see us soon.
We will see you seeing us soon.
No, we won't.